Welcome to ABA on Tap, where our goal is to find the best recipe to brew the smoothest, coldest, and best tasting ABA around. I'm Dan Lowry with Mike Rubio, and join us on our journey as we look back into the ingredients to form the best concoction of ABA on tap. In this podcast, we will talk about the history of the ABA brew, how much to consume to achieve the optimum buzz while not getting too drunk, and the recommended pairings to bring to the table. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and always analyze responsibly.
All right. This is your grateful co-host, Mike Rubio. Welcome back to ABA on Tap in part 2 with Michelle Vences. Enjoy.
Yeah, it's definitely a need, that collaboration, because we definitely have had clients that get kicked out of OT because their behaviors. They're like, they're not well behaved enough to do OT. And it's like, well, isn't that why you're here? So either that OT might benefit from some behavioral training, or the ABA therapist should be there with them to work collaboratively. But in theory, that would be great. In actuality, it isn't always great. Is that something that you've seen, that behavior is getting in the way of OT?
Oh, yeah, but more so than I want to. But lately, I did meet this cool, OT, and you can tell, I think it all has to do with those continuing education. You know, you want to look for something that's going to support you in areas that you need help in. And I remember, him coming in, and it was funny because I was the BCBA, he was the OT. So I was like, what's up, OT? Let's talk. I want to know what you do, And I let him talk, and he was talking beautiful. He was saying, yeah, I give him a lot of input, and I knew what client it was. Okay. Yeah, I give him a lot of input and things like that. And man, he attended at the end of the session. That's all he did. But that's a huge step for us, right? Because the attending increased by a lot. If that's what you're getting, beautiful, right? And I was standing there like, I like him. I like him a lot. He understands. Yeah. So guess what? I still get to collaborate with him and kind of give him a little bit of that ABA stuff. And I'm sure he's going to take it in. Again, I think it depends also on that individual who is motivated to go and find new things. Like, I just learned about Gestalt language the other day. Yeah. I was like, I knew I'm very I'm very observant. So I knew there was this different form of introducing some type of language to other kids. I just didn't know what it was or how it worked. And when he said those words and I read that little thing, he even brought me, he's so awesome. He's a speech therapist. He brought me this thing to read about Gestalt language. I was like, beautiful. Again, beautiful. If y'all know more about that, please tell me. Please.
This guy knows plenty.
I know very little, but I know very little about the actual premise of Gestalt language processing. Where I really appreciate it is going back into my developmental framework and looking at the idea that some kids, so like even if you're thinking about reading, the idea that whole word versus single sound, it's always going to be a premise in the way you develop language. So the notion that, especially as ABA professionals, again, overly task analyzing everything we can and breaking down into these small pieces, the notion that now you're presenting these bigger chunks of language, not expecting the child to replicate them as much as just expecting the child to learn from them and then to honor whatever language they are putting out as you shape it up. I think that's amazing, because we do spend so much time. And I hope I didn't butcher that. Anybody out there that knows more about GLP, please reach out to us. And we're going to need to get somebody doing GLP to come here in case I got that wrong. But I think it was very, so with all due respect, I don't think that GLP is a new concept. I think it's a new way of explaining something that we were otherwise missing. And I appreciate that. Because from my developmental framework, I can look at it and go, that's awesome. That's just giving us one other way to approach a skill that we're trying to develop in our learners. Perfect, man. Give me something else. Give me some other angle to use. We're okay with that. For sure.
Yeah. And I feel like for sure there's a lot more out there too. That's why I'm very observant. I like to observe. I like to just flow with them. I think once you get to learn the body in a neurological way, like I said, and just observe them that way, observe those reflexes, those emotions, those feelings, that fight or flight, you start to develop something personal for them, understanding them in that way, right? So even though I didn't know what Gestalt language was, I was still trying different forms of communication for them to improve that whatever way we can.
Yeah.
Plus, working on those muscles. I also did, I'm not a speech therapist, but I did get training in working on moving the tongue.
Yeah.
So I do that kind of stuff, you know. I love modeling. That's my favorite. I'm just there sticking my tongue out, like you know, and I don't
Playing
play
around.
any demands. I'm just having fun, and then again get into their level, and it's beautiful how everything works like that.
OT, yourself and OTs in general just doesn't have such a good, not scared of being goofy. Like you said, sticking your tongue out like that's hard. Especially a lot of the practitioners in ABA struggle with that. At least I did in the beginning. But I've seen OTs really resonate with that contingent invitation or just being goofy, being okay with that.
And it's the amount of I guess, modeling, and then I'm going to call it sort of concurrent reinforcement. If we think of the idea of sensory from an ABA perspective, we're always thinking of this from maybe some sort of positive reinforcement perspective. They do the desired behavior, and then we give them this input. You're not saying that. You're saying this input is constant and concurrent until there's been enough to see it propelled to the next level, and then we ask what's next. I think that's really important to highlight here, because we're going to put it into our contingencies, rightly so, because that's what we do. And here we're talking about things that are concurrent and preemptive or antecedent based. This input needs to happen before some of those behaviors of interest or skills that we're after are actually going to be available. Again, that's super important to capture, I think.
Can I give you an example?
Please.
Yeah.
Please do.
So, and it's scary too sometimes, because I'm like, I guess I wish I could use it in ABA term to have other people who are more ABA, you know, understand my perspective, because I feel like sometimes when I use the terms that I use, it might not make sense. I don't know, but procedurally,
you make a lot of sense. I think you kind of paint the picture of what people are supposed to be doing, and I think that's really important. So continue.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. So I had, you know, when I was doing OT stuff, I was actually collaborating with a BCBA, with a client that we shared, and you know, her perspective was like, oh, he doesn't want to put shoes on, he doesn't want to wear them, and you know, we've been trying this and we've been trying that, and he doesn't want to wear it. And then I'm like, okay, well, let me look at his reflexes. This is me as an OT, and those reflexes were so intense. I would touch his foot, you just feel it go. So you could only imagine what the foot is doing to him. I mean, the shoe. Yeah. What is that shoe doing to him?
Oh,
it's
interesting.
Yeah. So then I'm like, I was like, yeah. And I worked on the reflexes. It is just a lot of desensitizing, a lot of exposure, but there is, you have to follow like a protocol for that, for sure. I do believe that. But it is a lot of desensitizing and putting it through. To me, what that tells me in that perspective is I don't think he crawled a lot, because he didn't get those toes to bend back through crawling.
Interesting.
So again, integrating those reflexes. Yeah, it's my guess, and I love it, because I'll tell parents, did they crawl a lot, or did they crawl like at least, you know, I would say more than 6 months, and a lot of times they say no, and I'm like, ding, I get that. Yeah.
Wow,
so,
man.
After that, guess what? He started wearing his shoes.
So you're saying just the general idea that you have to get used to your foot being like this, and then you start cruising and you start standing up, so now your foot is like this. And then you start reaching for things that are higher than you can reach, so you start going on your toes and learning how to flex. And then maybe in the case you're talking about, that would have been enough to make sure the shoe's not going to overstimulate the foot.
Yes.
You just broke that down in a way that, you know, and again, I'm sure, and you would say this too, I'm sure, that was particular to that child you were looking in front of you. Not to say that this overarching structure doesn't apply to all of us, but that was just particular to that one kid and their shoes.
Exactly.
See, that's real individualized treatment.
Very. Always go that approach.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Every individual is different.
Man.
And I think, you know, when I start to, I also say, expose them. So if y'all have little ones or anything, expose them, put their feet barefoot in the grass. Think of that. We're triggering all those points in that foot. It's a lot of that exposure.
Okay.
A lot of that we don't do anymore. Think about it.
Wow. So toe walking. Can you talk about that a little bit? What's your experience with that?
Ooh.
That's a good one, right? I mean, we've got kids that do it so much they're getting surgery to cut their tendon to extend. I mean, that's a lot of behavioral impact. What's your experience? Give us your thoughts on that.
I think to be honest with you, I don't even think it's sensory. I think it's deeper than that. This is what I think, because this is more PT for sure. This is more PT. But,
good call. Good distinction.
Yes, PT, but we had again, we teach each other stuff. So this is what I know so far. So one, we kept thinking it could be maybe a sensory thing. I'm also wondering if it has to do with anything ligament wise or something in the body that's being shifted up. Are their hips too tight? Something's just pulling them all the time, where we're up here, but then guess what? They like it. And so they keep doing it, and then they fatigue when they come back down. So it's just this constant. And the reason I say that and I think that is because I hope PTs don't come after me for this, but please, if you have any info, let me know. I think, right? This is me thinking because and this is why I always do this, because there is clients out there who do not have services for this. So if I can figure out a small, tiny bit of something to better support them, I'm going to do it. So this information enough, I'm just kind of like, sensory wise, try to wear shoes around the house. That's what PT told me to do. It helps.
Because that brings it down. It brings it flat.
Brings it down a little bit more, but then there's kids who are already too high. Surgery has to happen, but from what I've seen, they always go back to it. Yeah. It always comes back to them being like that. So I think there's room for sure for more research on that. Yeah. Or maybe us looking for it too. Because I'm interested in that.
I mean, I've had relative success. That's why I asked. I've had relative success in just kind of thinking about basic behavioral approach and saying, well, if your foot's like this, the overcorrection for it would be getting you to do this. Now, you're not going to do that standing. So how am I going to get you to massage that? How am I going to get you to push a ball or, with the bottom of your feet? Again, I'm riffing here. I've had limited success in the past, but just the way you discuss it opens up a whole new set of ideas in terms of saying we're toe walking. We're always thinking about them walking and bringing their heels down. Well, that foot and that flexion back and forth and side to side is what you're pointing out and saying, well, how do you play with that to make sure that they've got that full range of motion? Again, you're really lending really cool insight here in terms of how we might approach a task analysis. And then more importantly, I would say, not in a linear direction toward the target, but in saying in order to hit that target, you're going to have to know how to hit all around this target too. And I think that's a super important premise that we really need that it's going to benefit us as ABA practitioners to not be so singular or overly focused.
Yeah, we talked about that. And I'm not sure if you've listened to any episodes, but if you haven't, check out the collaborative care episode. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on that. But she really has, opened up a lot of thoughts on the why. And ABA, we tend to do like the what. Okay, well, they don't wear their shoes. Okay, 2 seconds, now 5 seconds, now 10 seconds. It's just whatever the target is, let's desensitize and just expose that target. But then think about the why. Maybe it's a reflex thing. Maybe it's a just exposing them to being on the grass or things like that. That's nobody in ABA is really well, I don't know who's in ABA, but in that general training of ABA, we don't get any information on why somebody might be doing that based on reflexes. We just say, okay, well, let's expand. Let's do a DRH for everything, because that's what we do. Is we do DRHs or DRLs. But
I've seen that.
That's really interesting. I never thought about putting that together about the reflexes and the shoe wearing. And I was thinking about the client that you used to work with that I used to help you with that I think recently wore shoes for the first time. And he's 20, I think. But I was just thinking about what you were talking about in that context.
Let me ask you this about reflexes. This is a little pet theory I have, and you may or may not have insight on this, but something that I use minimally, especially with early starters, little guys. Whenever I walk into a case and they tell me that they're, the kiddo's afraid of the blender, they're afraid of the vacuum cleaner, they're afraid of the loud sounds. Somewhere back in my long history, I put together that those kids, if for some reason I was playing around and I picked them up over my head to sort of engage this moral reflex, 9 out of 10 of those kids that don't like sounds also don't like to be picked up in that way. Now, what I've been able to do with that's been limited. A lot of it's been locus of control with those sounds. The idea that, oh, the blender's on, I'm going to get you closer to it, and I'm going to show you how it turns off. And now we're standing next to it. But there's a lot of other things I might be missing. I don't know if you've got any insight into that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
moral reflex doesn't necessarily go away, right? That's one of those interesting reflexes that a lot of them go away, and this one stays with us. We need to be alerted by loud sounds. We need to catch ourselves when we're falling back. That reflex stays. So, yeah, go for it. Floor is yours.
Yes. So I love reflexes. Okay. So Moro is actually one of the first. It's kind of like, again, like steps. Moro is number one that we usually target when we're trying to integrate all of the reflexes. And a way we integrate Moro is actually putting the head in those positions. So then, of course, it's going to start supporting sound, tolerance of that sound and everything else. But my favorite one is to start with a small peanut ball and lay them backwards. You're going to notice you're going to be so tense going back. But then how about track that? You know, you can see like what's the duration there? You know, how long can they withstand this, right? So I would work on Moro first, and then after that exposure, going to a bigger therapy ball, and that's even bigger. Now we're going higher. Start very low because Moro is very scary. Yeah. Moro, if you don't get a kid to trust you with Moro, it's going to be hard to put him in that position again. Okay. So you have to go slow. It's even like, can they even lay on the ball? Like sometimes they're just like, just to even lay on the ball. Right. So work there. Always watch the way they are, and always start, after that, then again, you lean over the ball a couple of seconds. And then after that, you can start doing spinning in those planes that I had talked to you about earlier. So now we're advancing to more of that vestibular system to also promote that integration for Moro. And then after Moro, we also work on, STNR, ATNR. There's a lot. TLR. There's a lot. Like, I mean, I'm happy to like one day do even a presentation on it just to explain them because they're amazing. And I would love
that's probably worthwhile right there. And I love the way you're describing this too. And I can already tell by the way you're describing it, you have a protocol that you're outlining. I know that doesn't happen in that order ever. So you're ready to shift. You're ready to make it playful. If a kid doesn't want to lie on their back, you're right. They're going to tense up. They're not going to let you. So how you figure out to do that is where the play base comes in, right? You're playing. Oh, I just saw you do something. Let's see if you can do that again because that's the position I want to put you in. And I say that, and I want to highlight that because a lot of us may not start in that direction. A lot of us would start in the direction of just making that target happen. And this is a lot more of a dance. This is talk about shaping. You're literally waiting for any approximation to happen, and then you're grabbing onto it, and then you're playing up on it. So, tell us a little bit more about how that works.
Yeah, for sure. You said it beautiful. You explained it in the perfect ABA way. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you. I do too.
After we focus a lot on that, think about other ways to promote that, like swinging, right? On a swing, going down slides. Look at things that maybe even parents have mentioned they've never done before. Like, oh, well, my kid doesn't go down the slide. And what is that going to happen if they're not engaging in this play area? Those social skills are not going to develop at the pace that we want them to. So again, then you're going to be like, okay, let's try that slide again. Like, let's see if we can already do that, right? If you don't have a clinic that has one, I hope you do. Please be a sensory-based clinic. Always promote that. We plan to. Start to develop it. It's like, what's next, right? What other activities can we go that route? After that, we have, we also have like, do you want me to get deep? Yeah. There's one that's called fear paralysis reflex. Okay. So there's an actual tapping protocol for that. And that helps for those kids who are reacting, to noises as well. So it's another way to kind of work with the rhythm of the heart and the body. And you continue. Yes, it's beautiful. So beautiful. My fiance does it to me all the time. And it helps so much. And this is through personal experience. Again, we're working with a sensory system. We're working with the body. And it has noise as well with tapping as well, like that. So you're working on the system overall. So you do fear paralysis and Moro together. You pair those two together and you can help kids with those types of things as well. And then you climb the ladder, then we work on other things.
Yeah.
I mean, do y'all want to know about those? Let me know. We could go forever.
Good stuff.
So
go ahead.
Got a kind of a change of gears question. Anything else with OT?
No, I think we covered a good amount of ground. We're gonna, we will take you up on maybe exploring some of those individual techniques, unless you've captured them for yourself already. But I think we've got a future collaboration brewing here, because
so much.
I would love to capture that in terms of having people doing early intervention, for example, understand this from a play base, because most kids do this by themselves. And it takes us to watch it to go, hey, let's do that again. And it's not to say that we can't teach those things, but I don't know that after listening to you, I'm convinced that's not the way it starts. I mean, yes, it can sometimes, but most of the time we have to be watching for what's already available and make it happen again and shape it. And I really love the way you're describing it. So thanks for letting me finish that up. Let's shift gears, Dan.
That's awesome. So you brought up ADHD. A lot, and I'm just a general question, just curious of your thoughts on that, because I feel like that can be that's a big hot topic right now. Some people are like, why are so many people getting diagnosed? Some people are like, oh, it's a junk diagnosis or things like that. You've brought it up a lot. I'm just curious your thoughts on ADHD.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I have it in my history for sure. My brother was diagnosed when he was younger. But Hispanic families, we don't carry those diagnoses with us. My mom left it behind. She left it behind. Yeah. So, growing up, my mom's like, oh, and they thought you had it. I'm like, Mom, going into the field that I'm in, I'm like, what if he did have it, Mom? Yeah. And I ended up going to get looked at for depression, anxiety, things that were happening. And I was on like 3 medications. I was already seeing a psychiatrist for like a year. And then one day I told her about my history deeper. I was like, well, my mom thought my brother had ADHD. And then she goes, well, did he get a formal diagnosis? I was like, I think so. Went down that hole. And then she's like, let's try it. Now I'm only on 1 medication and I let go of the other 3. I went to school again and I feel like I learned so much more than in the past. And I feel like emotionally I developed a lot. I did research on ADHD as well. Medication can help form that developmental, I guess, like the brain development, development. I'm not good at that area, y'all.
No worries.
It's okay.
So I wonder, right? I wonder if medication could have, just helped my brain with organization and social skills. I'm horrible at eye contact. I don't like it. But now I'm trying to mask less and not really, try to fit with everybody else, I guess you can say. I struggle with that a lot for sure. I'm starting to just find a crowd that supports me for me, because I don't want to forever mask the rest of my life, right? Then I also wondered the same thing. I was like, okay, well, why does my ex-husband have ADHD as well? Because we went that route as well. And with research, they also stated that neurodivergent people tend to attract with or other neurodivergent people. And I was like, really? And so, my ex-husband used to skateboard and he used to jump off the roof. And I was like, dude, that's so dope. I'm so risky like that too. Like, I like your vibe, right? So again, we start to have a lot of those things in common. And we both are actually diagnosed with ADHD. And I feel like a lot of people around me, people that I get along with, are very neurodivergent as well. So maybe in that perspective, maybe you think there's a lot of people with ADHD, but maybe it's just the crowd that you're with. Sure. Maybe is there something you're relating to with them, and that's the people that you keep with you, right? And so I always see in that perspective, because I've had friends come and go, but only a few kind of stayed because they understood that I was messy. They understood that I sucked at texting back, that I didn't really call, that I forgot sometimes their birthdays because my ADHD, and I don't care. You don't have to call me for my birthday either. Let's be on the same boat because I like our friendship. So, okay. I see it in that perspective as well.
It's interesting because you brought up eye contact, masking, things like that. There is such a crossover between ADHD and ASD. It seems like there's a lot of comorbidity or co-diagnostic traits between the two of them. And it's interesting sometimes to see where maybe one crosses over into the other, or it doesn't cross over in the other, or it becomes both. I don't know. I'm obviously not a diagnostician, but it seems like a lot of the individuals that we work with that have ASD diagnosis eventually end up with ADHD diagnosis eventually as well. So it's interesting that you brought that up.
So my social skills are not the best. Sorry, this is why I interrupt a lot.
You're good. They work for you though. Again, that's the masking piece, right? It might not be the best in certain circles, but in your circles, it works. So you mentioned that you went from 3 medications to 1 medication. What can you speak to, like how that helps you? How does the medication help you? Do you do other things outside of the medication to, again, I'm going to say, quote unquote, work on your ADHD? I don't even know what that means. I don't know if that is something you want to work on or how inhibitive that is to your daily life. Can you kind of speak to that at all?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think the main issue was that I wasn't, getting to work on time. I wasn't getting my kids to school on time. And so what does that kind of do for you? Depression hits, anxiety hits, and, being on multiple medications was something that I didn't want. And so I'm very thankful for my psychiatrist, to dive deeper into that. And when I got on that medication, because I described those things, I was like, look, I'm depressed because I'm not organizing myself. I'm depressed because I'm not happy in my work because I don't understand how to accommodate to myself. And I think it started to get this pattern of what identifies as ADHD, my emotional regulation, all these things. And when you try a medication like a stimulant, guess what I started to do? I started to meet deadlines. Now I have a business. Look how many jobs I have. Yeah. I am so successful. And guess what? I rather live a good quality life, even if it shordens it, because I don't want to live the way I lived before. I was drinking 4 coffees a day just to keep me up. I slept all day. I wasn't eating. It was just a lot of things that was affecting me overall. And at the end, it was ADHD, at the end of the day. Now it's managed and I feel like myself, for sure.
Well, good.
Really quickly, I like to talk about the whole notion of neuropsychopharmacology, right? And so you have a personal experience. Could you speak to a little bit in terms of taking a stimulant and experiencing both side effects and therapeutic effects? What did you do about that behaviorally? Because I'm sure that had to be a little bit of a challenge to find the right dose, to titrate, to land on the right medication, which means you had to be dealing with different sensations, different actions that may have been stemming from as a result of those medications, whether side effects or therapeutic. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like the medication, definitely, it's hard to adjust. And I don't feel like I found the right one just yet. And I've been doing this for almost 5 years.
Cool. Okay.
I think it's a combo of everything. I've been talking to my doctor a little bit more, saying, now we found out I'm low with vitamin D. So I think it's also relating to that as well. Like trying to bring what else is my body needing to better support the medication, I guess you can say.
Okay.
Because I still kind of feel not so much symptoms towards the medication. I think the medication adjusted pretty well because low doses, higher doses. What else was another question? I lost myself.
No, yeah, just asking about your experience and how you sort of landed. How do you manage the medication based on the effects you're feeling, right? Behaviorally, yes. What did you do to manage it? So you're talking about doing other supplements. I mean, and this relates to parents who are, considering this for their kids. Like they think it's this elixir, this magic wand, and no, there's a whole bunch of other factors.
Yeah, I could give you 2 different perspectives on that. So for me, I think now I've developed a lot of coping skills. I think I've developed a lot of skills, but I just found something new out. Because I think one thing, I guess a con from this is that it sucks to come to the realization that without my medication, like how I am, and how I do have a disability and I have to accept that this is just kind of it's just something that's going to push me day to day, but it's not something that's really going to cure me. That's something that I still struggle with. But I came across some research that said if we start medication before the age of 12, it could develop the brain. It could actually do something to the brain to eventually not even need it as much, or maybe not need it at all, because you start to develop coping skills at the age that you need to. You start to experience things that you need to at that age, because we are about 2 years behind cognitively. And I believe that 100%. I believe that. Going through my timeline, I was always making decisions that I'm like, what was I thinking? And it didn't really hit me until maybe I would say 27, when they say like your brain is fully like done developing and things like that. But I noticed that other people have already made better decisions by that time that I was in, and it's because of that. I wasn't even on medication yet wait, that's a lie. I started like at 25. So I was for 2 years, but maybe it just shifted something in me. So I might try it. Not going to lie. I might try it with my kids just to see if, because we can always stop it. It doesn't have to be something that they have to continuously do. But my daughter's under 10, she's under 12. My son is 2. And I think I'm going to move forward based on that research for sure.
Yeah. And that's a really interesting perspective you're lending, which, if parents are out there listening, I know this is a huge decision for a lot of parents. Stimulant medication, you start learning what the chemical compounds are. They sound very scary as related to narcotics. So that can be very difficult. People can really stifle their decision there and saying, no, I don't want that in my kid. And then you're talking about something very important behaviorally and experientially, and saying, if this pill allows me to then engage in a behavior and allows me to have an experience that I wasn't able to sustain before, and I can derive reinforcement from that, then I might do it again. And if I do it again and again and again, that's going to affect my brain development. And again, I'm oversimplifying that axis there, but I think it's important to think about it that way, and you're lending a very important perspective there.
Yeah, think about it like this. Think about it like this. Like, they're receiving reinforcement while doing that, and they're going to continue engaging in appropriate behaviors, because I didn't. I made decisions that could have changed and altered my life, and I didn't know that. And now I see the version I am today, and I'm very proud of who I am now. Back then, and I don't know if that would have ever changed if I didn't start my medication, to be honest with you.
Cool.
So what role do you feel like that has? Because you mentioned organization, you mentioned timeliness, things like that. There's no medication for organization or timeliness. You still have to learn those skills, right? So it's not like you can take this medication, all of a sudden you'll just magically show up on time or you'll organize. Do you feel like the medication slows you down so that you can then prioritize that and you can work on the behavioral side of those skills? Is that kind of the benefit?
Yeah, it slows things down. I think I concentrate a lot more. So then when I am doing a task, I finish it quicker. And so then that gives me time to even, what time is it? I come back to that, because with my ADHD, I'm just like, go, 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 go. I'm late all of a sudden. I realize, what time is it? I remember all of a sudden, and then I'm late. And the medication has, again, I started to meet these deadlines. Reinforcement was given to me. Better opportunities were given to me. Now I'm a BCBA. I never thought I was going to be a business owner. It's just reinforcement after, it's just being reinforced. And I'm just like, I'm going to keep responding. Like, I want to keep going. And again, I feel like now, even if I stop medication, I think I can find a way. I think I'll be okay for sure.
You have the habits built in. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the skill, but I don't know if it would, I don't think it, I guess I don't want to make it sound like I can't live without it. It's more like, what if I get my kids to do it at a younger age and they're able to develop that and not have to take it as an adult for how long I am? That's what I'm trying to do.
Sure. That would be the ideal, right? That would be the ideal. And again, if you're able to afford them those experiences, that reinforcement, if you will, because they're in a different state, physiologically speaking, that makes a lot of sense. And you speak to the concern that a lot of parents are going to have in terms of, again, addiction. Well, if they start early and they keep taking it, then they're going to get dependent. We're not saying that that's not a possibility. You're just painting a whole different picture, given your experience. And I think that's really important for people to understand. Again, talking about neuropsychopharmacology, one of the things I like to talk about is, if your child's getting side effects, ask your psychiatrist, how long do they think they need you to try this before they can determine something different or differentiate the prescription? And during that time, can you manage those side effects behaviorally? I'm pretty sure there is a way. Maybe you can't, in which case then you abandon ship. And then more importantly, there's therapeutic effects. Your child is, I'm going to be a little dramatic here, but all of a sudden your child is sitting and attending. don't leave that in a vacuum. What are you doing as part of the environment to give feedback to that behavior? And so again, I think you're capturing that very, very well. Not to say that that's going to quell a parent's concern immediately, but you're giving a much more important, much brighter outcome and picture that I think is important for anybody considering medication out there. Now, we knew Michelle was going to be. Did you have something else, sir, on that?
I was going to change gears, but go ahead. You change gears.
Well, maybe we're going the same way. We talked about organization and focus and things that are required to, say, pass a board exam, for example. So before we ran out of time, because I knew we were going to be able to chat through these 2 hours very easily.
Because we got the TikTok queen on here.
That's right. So let's talk about your business, talk about your test prep, talk about your social media presence. Tell us all about it, how it started, what you're doing, what the future directions are, and that's going to leave us in a really good spot somewhere to maybe wrap up this convo.
Yeah, for sure. So it all started with this idea of wanting to do like parent education. I love parent education. I've done remote OT. I'm starting to do remote ABA. So I really like that, but that didn't really take off. So all of a sudden the ABA side of me started to post. And that held on. And I started to find different ways to teach this content in the way I taught myself. I didn't grow up with really big English terms. My first language was Spanish, but like it's English now for sure. My first language. I'm like, I don't know a lot of Spanish.
I too am an English language learner.
But he has the Stanford vocabulary, like neuropsychopharmacology or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Gets paid by the syllable.
I don't know that. No. So that's what I tried to do is like, I started to even define, like, for example, arbitrary. I don't know what arbitrary alone means. I was like, is that even an English word? Or did y'all make it up? So I started to research that because then I could pair the English, definition with the ABA definition and create something. I try to teach in a mnemonics way. I didn't even know what mnemonics was until my fiance told me what it was. So now I use it. Learning these terms in a fun way and experimenting. Like it's like a kid. It's like you want to have fun while you learn so it can stick. So why make it so boring? Why have the same type? I love y'all's tone, by the way. I could hear y'all. Y'all sound so much fun. That's entertaining, right?
Engaging.
And so I'm like, you know what? I need to be myself and just talk about it in a fun way. And people liked it. So I started to create a journal. It's called Declassified ABA Survival Guide. I don't know if y'all know about Ned's Declassified.
Well, we are familiar with it, not as familiar as we should be. So tell us all about
it. It's just the show I grew up watching. It's about a kid in a school setting, and he's just trying to survive school. And so we got that idea, me and my fiance, and then created a journal that reflects the task list, one, because that's the way I went through it. And it's so much easier. You don't have to go and read Cooper. Then you have your staff meds. Then you have all these other things that you're trying to stay organized with. So I found a way to keep yourself organized through the task list. Make sure you target every word in it. And have fun with it. Draw, doodle, color this journal. Again, stay motivated. I'm teaching people how to find reinforcing environments. Do ABA on yourself. Find a way, a routine to make it fun. And people have enjoyed it a lot on TikTok. And I have a podcast that just came out called Radical BCBAs.
Shout out to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun. I'm finding people who can nerd out with me and just show a fun and different perspective of ABA. I have, what else do I have?
It sounds like you're making a lot of that sensory, like the coloring books and the going out and experience that you talked about earlier, exposing to all the different senses. Sounds like you're doing that with the ABA exam prep. Yeah,
for sure. And hearing different perspectives of it. So I tutor too. I might not tutor forever though. You know how that is. It's a lot of, I'm trying to support the community, but maybe I could find like something to where I could reach out to more, because not everyone could afford tutoring. It's also that perspective. I want to provide that knowledge, I guess, in a faster way, for sure.
The linguistic piece is interesting because for the last probably 12 years, I've mentored a lot of people to go through the exam, and it's probably about 50, because we live in San Diego, so it's probably about 50-50 native English speakers versus English is the second language. They obviously speak English very well, but English is a second language. And it would be perpetually more difficult for the English as a second language people, even with the same amount of knowledge, like they understand the concept the same, decoding test questions. Because I think English as a first language, you can kind of see the grammar and it can lead you in a way, and you can understand root words behind things. So even if you don't know, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but you don't know what a word means, you can kind of decode it, figure out what the root word means, and go down the right pathway. Versus kind of like you're saying, if English isn't your first language, then you can't go down that same pathway and you're kind of stuck.
Yes.
And I would see that 100%, because knock on wood, I'm a native English speaker in terms of the exam prep, so a lot of it made sense to me because of the language, but it didn't make the same amount of sense. That's not commenting on their ability, their knowledge, or anything like that. It's literally just the linguistic piece.
Yes, because I think once I break it down into a more day-to-day, people are like, oh, that's all it means. I mean, that's not what all means, but again, it's a mnemonic way of you on trying to understand what it means. But I reached out to, have y'all heard from ABA Exam Review?
Have we?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
So they do YouTube videos, and that's how I learned, was through their YouTube videos. I'm actually collaborating with them, and they're going to have QR codes in my journal where people could just quickly scan, and then his video is going to pop up to that task list. Like, he has every task list on there. So every page is going to have their QR code and a QR code of me explaining in a more fun and English way, not so ABA jargon.
I love that.
So,
I think an example might be like empiricism. We used that earlier, right? So like, as a native English speaker, I know ism means the study of. So that already, I know what part of that word means. And then I know empiricism. So it's the study of empiricism or empirical. And I know what empirical means is tangible. So just by breaking down what the word is without even knowing the definition, I can make sense of the word. Versus if I don't have that, I've got to memorize every single definition, which is going to be so much more tedious.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you breaking that down.
The definition then has even more harder English words in them.
and that the problem too is there's a lot of words that can be used interchangeably, and you might see them differently on the exam than you memorized, which would make sense to a native English speaker. Like, oh, that word means the same thing. But if you've only memorized one word, then you're losing that stimulus generalization, right? You're only memorizing that word, and you see it in its other form, and you're like, I don't know what that means. We had a Kendall.
Kendall Rindeck Samuel. Are you familiar with her? She put out the, I'm going to forget, Rutledge thesaurus of ABA terms. I'm butchering that, but same thing. She put out a thesaurus to just break down terms, ABA terms and technology into every day. Yeah, we should connect you guys.
Yes,
she put that book out there. What's your impression of, and then I've got a story after you answer this question. How long do you recommend people study for or prepare for the exam? And I know that's probably going to vary from person to person, but if you had your at least this much time, what would your response be?
Right. I think it also depends, but I would say 3 months if you're not committing.
Nice.
If you're committing, I did it in about a month and a half. But that is like,
nice.
I wasn't working as much anymore. Like, I was lessening my hours. Very committed. 3 hours a day. Took weekends off. But yeah, I would suggest, because think about it. If you're still having to work, you are tired. You are exhausted.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And a month and a half if you don't work. But if you work at least 3 months and you still have to commit, it doesn't mean you don't commit. You commit.
Yeah, I have a story about commitment here.
Okay, I'm not sure I've heard
it's
this
story
before.
time.
I'm excited. Circle time.
We have to go away a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It was 2010.
It's either going to be El Paso or Stanford.
And I had just lost my job, the first place that you and I worked at together. And I was eligible for candidacy. Now, you have to understand, I was part of the first cohort in San Diego in 2006 for National University that brought the programming toward candidacy for your board exam, right? Very first cohort.
Wow.
So here it is. I passed, I finished that coursework, and then there was no reason for me to get my BCBA because I was working. It didn't matter. And then I lost my job, and then the insurance mandates were coming through. And so now it was time for me to get my board certification. But I was nearing my 5 years. So my candidacy was expiring, meaning my coursework was going to be irrelevant. At that point in time, it was a computer-based test, but they didn't offer it every day. They offered it like once every 6 months, right? So I look at the testing site that's available, that the next testing date that's available, testing site. I need to do this to get a job. I'm married. I've got a family, young kids. I'm not working, so I've got time to commit. I've got 7 days till the next exam. And I'm gonna have to give a shout out to Behavior Development Solutions and Steve Eversole. Steve Eversole modules. That and flashcards. 7 days past the first time.
Wow.
Let me make clear. I do not recommend this method.
No.
I was literally the day of the test going over the last 2 modules, like an hour before the test. I was going over those modules. But to your point, Michelle, studying, committing, and then having a good system to study with. That was key. I remember I talked to Steve Eversole once at a conference, and I told him that story. It was many years ago, and he told me never to tell anybody, and here I am breaking that promise. Sorry, Steve. But again, I'm not recommending anybody do that. I am, however, highlighting the idea of having a good study system, and is what you provide for people as well. So thank you so much for doing so. People used to talk about doing this for 6 months. In fact, I think the Behavior Development Solutions premise or their guarantee was if you studied for 6 months and you didn't pass, I think they gave you some portion of your money back. You're talking about 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I would say things have gotten better, right? Things have gotten better at how we study here. And again, it takes commitment. So anyway, I had to share that story. Thank you for doing everything you do to help people out there to prepare for this exam, because it's not easy. And what's the first time pass rate or the failure rate? Like 60% still?
It was
it's like 56 passing first time.
56. Yeah. That's a coin toss, man.
And then each time gets worse.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm.
You would think each time gets
you
better.
psych yourself out. That's why it gets worse. Just like marriage.
Divorce rate.
Oh my goodness! Wait, are we saying there's a correlation between divorce rates and BACB exam passing rates? You said 56%. I think it's pretty close.
What would you recommend? So in that 3 months, 6 weeks to 3 months, maybe they can check out your content. That could be a good strategy. In addition, or instead of that, what else would you recommend that people do?
For sure, talking about it, I would suggest a tutor. But if you have someone like that gives you that time, talking about it for sure, nerding out about it, making it again fun, and then going down task lists for sure. Look at those YouTube videos and break down each task list. For sure, mock exams, but I suggest to do mock exams either. If you're on section A, do only A mock questions. If you're in section B, like that. Or you wait till the very end and then do mock questions, because this is what I tell them. The more mock questions you get correctly, the more you're going to want to continue to respond. If you start getting them wrong and you start doing a whole mock question when you're barely starting to study, you're going to get discouraged. So always try to, it's like, yeah, you're breaking that down, right? Let's get through A, and then you could do some of those mock questions if you're ready for that. But then reviewing that task list again, you're going to go through it one time, but go and review it again. I would say at least 2 times. And then finding different ways to learn about it. If you're in section A, you could do my videos. You could do, like I said, ABA exam review videos, do the mock questions, and then talk to someone about that. So you can be clear and that you are defining those words the way you need to, and repetition for sure. That is the key.
I love that, talking to someone, because I, knock on wood, passed my first time too. But I don't think it was a surprise, because I was the trainer at my company before that. So my fluency, like I was always training this stuff, always training. And even now, like with probably not half the stuff, but a good portion of the test is, since I haven't trained in a little while, like I'm not as good as I would have been a year ago. So like you said, talk to people, teach other people about it, stay fluent with that material, because at some point we have it all, and then we lose it. Like with Allison, I was talking about the different types of instructional designs, which I guess isn't on the test list anymore, but like I could talk about that stuff in my sleep when I was going over it. But being able to explain it too. One thing that I saw as well is being able to understand the concept rather than just an example, because if the example is different on the exam than the one people memorized. That would get thrown. Knowing words, knowing different forms of words, like functional behavioral assessment versus descriptive assessment. They're basically the same thing. You might see one, you might see the other. If you've only learned one and then you see descriptive assessment on the test, you're like, what is this?
Yeah, like alternative or alternating treatment design and multi-element is another that I thank goodness I ran into both of this while I was studying and I got it correct because I think I ended up seeing alternating treatment design for sure. Yep. So you got to mix it up. Make sure you understand that. Not just that, what if there's like other words again to, for example, validity, then there's internal validity, external validity, and social validity. It's like, what? Excuse me, what does that all mean? You know?
That's even before you get to reliability. So
yep. There were a couple parts too where I suggested people, and this was just me, this isn't anybody else, and please let me know if you feel differently. A couple like really technical parts on the exam, like different types of compound reinforcement schedules, different types of like EOs.
The abolishing operation.
No, not the abolish.
CMOS, CMOR.
Yes, those. All the CMOs. You actually understood those better than I did. Like the CMOR. At some point, I was like, if you're overloaded, like, don't stress on all of these things. You might get a couple questions wrong, and that's okay. There might only be one or two questions on compound reinforcement schedules or CMORs versus CMOTs versus CMOSs. But if you spend the amount of time, if you're already overloaded and you're going to spend this many hours like focusing on that, then you're going to forget the other stuff, which is going to be like 98%. So I would tell my people, like, it's okay to not know everything and get a couple questions wrong at expense of having a really good foundation of everything else. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And that's totally okay if you disagree.
I don't know. I kind of disagree.
Please do.
I think you should find a way to, you just need a hook. You just need something, just a little piece because you can break it down. So if you come across CMO, if you've never seen CMO, right? You've only seen it as motivating operation, like actually just spelled out that way. Then what does conditioned mean? We're going to train something, break that word apart. I always tell them that if you don't know let me give you an example, you know what internal validity is, but then you come across social validity and you've never seen it before, break it down. You know what validity is. It has to do with the validation of that behavior. Okay, so what does social mean? What do you think social means, right? You start to kind of use what you have to break those down. That's what I always teach. But if you can try to target each one with a hook, meaning with CMOR, reflexive, what does that mean? It's like, I always give them examples, like you see your boss coming, I give them the whole example and then you act reflexive and then you run. Boom. That's all you need to understand to break down that question. You don't have to always know the whole ABA term, but I always tell them, if there's some things that you're still not grasping, find something to hook onto, because it's going to help you answer that one or two questions that you do get. And you have a bigger chance of getting it correctly than just saying you're going to get a few wrong, I guess you could say.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's totally okay. There's different strategies, and I appreciate you talking about yours. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as we predicted, time flew by.
Oh, yeah. Wow,
here we are. Yes. You know what I really appreciated about you, Michelle, is especially hearing this last little segment where you're talking about all the technology, you're talking about exam prep, which a large part of it is just simply memorizing these definitions and understanding how they might be applied. You know all that stuff, but that's not the way you talk.
Yes.
It's
and
crazy,
I
right?
really appreciate that about you. So if somebody hears you, and I'll be the first to say, like, I'll defer to this guy on the tech any day because he knows it.
Except CMOs.
And I'm confident knowing that if he reminds me what it is, then I might have a way to demonstrate it. And you sort of encapsulate both of those things. That's really cool. Like I love that you're so divergent, you're so creative, but you've got a real good lock on the tech, on the strong definitions too. So that's a real good combination of skills. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I thank you. I do it to support those like me who need that. Like you said, there's so many strategies. I never, ever, ever promote saying, don't go to them, don't go to them. I say, use all of them if you need to.
If it works.
You find your formula. Work what works best for you.
Speaking of which, you can speak to Sidekick, a good platform. Allison was just on our podcast. She's obviously the creator of that. You have experience with that? That's one you'd recommend?
I do. And I've told people before too, they're like, where did you get your hours done? Always recommend them because, I love that. As soon as she's very ABA, you go in there, she's amazing. And then she gives you all these, like, what's your preferences on this? Or I felt so seen.
It's funny. You sounded just like her.
Yeah. She's amazing. And then paired me with Suzanne, and I specialize in OBM as well. Wow. Right. Isn't that crazy?
That's awesome.
I could ask.
Many hats.
And she's great at the OBM stuff, and it opened up a whole new world for me. I feel like they work really hard on pairing you with someone based on using ABA's, data collection, whatever she did. She did amazing. She paired me with Suzanne, and I'm just very thankful for that. So yes.
And how can people find you? Yep. Where and how can
give
people
us the whole rundown? Everywhere people can find you. Please promote yourself.
Everywhere you would like people to find you.
Exactly.
Not Facebook.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so TikTok is at Mimi BCBA, so that's MIMI. On YouTube, I'm at Declassified ABA. And then on Spotify, I am under Radical BCBAs, and then we'll have probably some more. I do have my original platform over everything is The Mindful Learner, and you can find that at themindfullearner.org as well.
Wow. Right on. It has been a distinct pleasure to speak with you, to learn. I've got to get this on the podcast, given that we come from a similar place, and hopefully you'll understand this question. I don't know who else out there will, but is it chicos or cometa?
Cometa.
Oh, look at you.
Yes.
Dad has no idea what we're talking about.
Some El Paso reference.
All of it. just serve it up in front of me and I'll eat it. It's funny. I would have said Chicos initially a long time ago. And they've just changed. It's not the same stuff I grew up with. But Cometa's got all the variety. I mean, they're all good roll tacos. Flautas. But yeah, there you go. So we've learned a lot from you today. I'd like to do a little synopsis here to wrap up the show. And what I'm going to say is work on your Moro reflex, nerd out in a fun way, and
always analyze responsibly.
Cheers, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
ABA on Tap is recorded live and unfiltered. We're done for today. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. See you next time.
Always analyze responsibly.
ABA on tap.